Hi everyone, so welcome back to our YouTube channel. So today we will continue our chapter 2, Theory of Consumer Behavior. In the last video, we discussed about what what is the demand curve, and we actually derived the demand curve with the help of indifference curve and the budget line. Right. We saw that as per the law of demand, the demand curve looks like a downward sloping demand curve. Right. So it basically looks like we can recall. I'll just mm, draw it again once. So it looks like this. This standard demand curve looks like this, where y-axis denote the price of the commodity and x-axis denote the quantity of the commodity. And this is our demand curve. We can denote it with the help of, we can write it down as D, which is a function of price, right? So in this, the demand curve, the law of demand curve states that as the price of a good increases and the quantity demanded for that commodity reduces. So we'll go in a formal definition soon, but just let's understand uh, with the help of two effects, like why the demand curve is downward sloping, right? So it is because of the two effects that we will discuss now. What are these two effects? That is the substitution effect and the income effect. So what happens when the price of a commodity, when the price of a commodity changes? There is these two effects come into role, right? So what happens? Let's say these two effects come into place when there's a price of a commodity, when there's a change in the price of a commodity. All right. So let's say our bananas, because our commodities is the bananas. The let's say bananas have become cheaper. Okay. Bananas have become, because it is, I'm just taking the same example that we have in the textbook. So bananas become cheaper. What happened? Now the consumer, in order to derive, in order to derive the same level of satisfaction, because now he can consume more bananas because the bananas can become cheaper. The consumer, in order to like have, or in order to derive the same level of utility, in order to derive the same level of utility, the consumer would consume the consumer would substitute mangoes. That is the another quote we have. The consumer would substitute bananas for mangoes. All right. That is the substitution effect. So basically, this is the substitution effect that will happen when there's a change in the price of a commodity. So here, as bananas become cheaper, the consumer, because the consumer, earlier, let's say the consumer was consuming, let's say, 5 units of bananas and 5 units of mangoes, right? This is bananas, this is mangoes. Now the consumer since the price bananas have become cheaper, the consumer would like to, since it gives us some level of satisfaction or utility. In order to derive the same level of utility, the consumer would consume more of bananas, let's say 6 bananas, and he would he or she would consume less of mangoes, right? Let's say this 6 or 4. Okay, so I'm just taking a random example in order to derive the same level of utility. Understood? So this is what the substitution effect. Now, what is the income effect? What happens when bananas have become cheaper? When bananas become cheaper, this is what we are understanding the income effect. Okay, when bananas has become cheaper, the consumer consumers' purchasing power has increased. Correct? The consumers' purchasing power has increased. Due to that, he or she will be able to consume more of bananas. Right? She will consume or able to consume more of bananas. Correct? So let's say earlier, let's say the consumer spends entire income on bananas, and earlier he was able to consume, let's say, 10 bananas, right? Since the bananas have become cheaper, it was earlier 20 rupees, now it has become 10 rupees, right? So earlier, let's say the banana, he was consuming 10 bananas. If he and spends entire income on bananas, now he would be able to consume with the same level of income because now his purchasing power has increased, huh? Right? So here he'll get extra money now left. So his purchasing power increases in that now maybe he's able to consume 15 bananas. So he will consume more of bananas. That is what is income effect. That is known as income effect. Understood? Now, just to sum it up, let's understand the law of demand with the help of a formal definition that as the price of a commodity changes, considering other factors remaining same. As the price of a commodity changes, considering other factors remain constant. Considering other factors remain constant, as the price of a commodity changes, um, considering other factors remain constant, the price of commodity changes. So considering the demand for that commodity, let's say if I have increased, the price of a commodity increases, the demand for that commodity will fall. And similarly, I'm just using a short form. Similarly, the price of the good falls, the demand for that good increases. All right. Now, this is what the law of demand states. Correct. And if let's say we want to draw a demand curve. Let's draw a linear demand curve. Okay. And earlier we have drawn a demand curve which is downward sloping. However, it is not linear. Let's take an example where the demand curve looks like this, or its function is like A minus BP, right? So demand curve looks like this, that where if P is greater than 0 and P is less than A upon B, right? And okay, one second. I'll just draw this, write the entire function in one. Right. So demand function looks like demand D of P, that is the demand function. It is equal to A minus BP, where P is less than equal to A upon B, but greater than equal to 0. Correct. And it is equal to 0 if P is greater than A upon B. So this is the demand curve that we have provided. And the demand curve will look like a straight line, downward sloping straight line. That is the price and that is the quantity. Okay. This is the one. What will be the intercept? That is interesting. So let's say the demand curve, the price is 0. Okay. So since it is a linear demand curve, the price is 0. The demand in that case would be A. So our intercept becomes A. And let's say the demand curve is, let's say the price is, or we would say the demand is, what will this y-intercept would be? The y-intercept would be, let's say A minus BP. What would here the x is 0, right? In that case, the P becomes A upon B. Correct? This becomes A upon B. Now, quantity. So this is basically the demand curve, the linear demand curve. Okay. Now here, let's understand that A is our x-intercept, that is, we could call it an intercept, and minus B is our slope. Correct? Minus B is our slope. Just one second. Okay. Yes. So that's all about the linear demand curve. And we can also say that the slope, what the slope of the demand curve states that the slope of the demand curve states that as what is the change in the demand as the price of a good increases by 1 unit. Okay. So let's say this P increases by one, right? So the change in P is one. What would impact, how would impact the change in the quantity demanded? It would be if price increases by one, the quantity demanded would fall by minus B units. Okay, understood? Because if there's a change in, if we are calculating a change in this demand function, the change, the intercept would cancel out. The what will remain? The change in P is one. So change in demand would be minus P of one. That is minus P. Similarly, if the price of good increases by 2 units, right? In that case, the demand curve would fall, the demand of that commodity would fall by minus 2B units. Okay. So that's about the law of demand. Now, yeah. So the let's understand the interesting part of the substitution effect and income effect that we have understood earlier, just in previous slide. What is the normal good, right? So normal good. Let's understand the normal good and let's understand the inferior good. Okay. And I guess this is something which is mentioned in our textbooks as well. Yeah. So as we know that the demand function is a relation between the consumer's demand for a good and its price when the other things are given. So let's say now we want to understand the demand for a good, the relation between the demand for a good and the income of the consumer. All right. Okay. That's what we are considering, right? So what happens if the income of the consumer increases? How it will impact? I'm just rewriting it in different formats. How it will impact the demand for the goods. How it will impact the demand for the good. All right. Now, the quantity, let's say, because as in general, we know that as the income of the income of the consumer increases, the demand for a good generally rises, right? But it is not always the case. It is true, yes. If income, if increase in income increases the demand of a good, the demand of a good, that good is classified as classified as a normal good. Okay. Just like we know that if we get a, let's say, extra pocket money, we would like to consume more. Earlier, we consumed, let's say, one bottle of Coke. We would now be consuming two bottles of Coke. Correct. So, and that is classified as a normal good for us. Correct. But there is another case happens when the increase in income can reduce what happens? Reduce the demand of a good. So this is the second scenario, and this was the first scenario, which is of case of normal good, and this is the second scenario where increase in income reduce the demand of that good. It will classify the good will be classified as the inferior good. Understood? It reduces the demand of a good. The good is classified as inferior good. Why so? For example, let's say why so, or I would say just let's give an example. The consumer would, let's say, earlier consuming the low quality cereals, but as the income increases, the might shift, would shift to the shift to the better quality of cereals or better quality of grains as and reduce the demand of low quality cereals. Reduce. Once again. Reduce the low quality cereals as consumers shift to better quality of grains and reduce the low quality cereals as its income increases. So what happened? The demand for that low quality cereals would reduce, and the consumer would shift to the better quality of grains, right? Or cereals. So in that case, the low quality cereals would be classified as an inferior good. Understood? Now, there is a interesting part, one more, that the interesting part is that sometimes, at times, a good, same good might be a normal good at certain level of income, or it is an inferior good at other levels of income. Let's say, as we mentioned, that as income increases, as income increases, the consumption of normal good of a good increases, right? So it is classified as a normal good, but up to a certain level, of income, right? However, after a level of income is reached, the consumption of a good, the consumption of a of that good falls as income increases. Right, it happens, right? So, it we see in this in our day-to-day life as well, right? At a certain level, let's say a person was earning an income of, let's say, um, earlier it was in like 100 rupees a day, right? And then they started earning, uh, let's say the income increases to 200, 300. The consumer would keep on increasing the consumption of a good, let's say a cereal, right? A low quality cereal. However, as the income increases to, let's say, 5,000 rupees per day, right? Maybe after that point, the consumer would not consume the same quality. The demand for the low quality cereals would reduce. Correct. After a point, let's say after the consumer reached to a level where he was earning 5,000 rupees per day, he would not consume same low quality cereals. Correct. So that happens in real life. That is something very more realistic, right? So that is about the income effect and the substitution effect, and also about the normal goods and inferior good. There's also a third type of given good, that is known as the given good, right? So we will study that also. We will have a slight in our next video, and also we will continue with the next part of this chapter. Till then, just revisit this concept, what we have understood so far, and let me know if you have any doubt in the comments, or what did you like the concept. And till then, stay tuned. Bye bye.